We heard the good news a couple of days ago that FIFA has lifted the suspension or ban on international football for ZIFA, which is the Zimbabwe Football Association. And you'll remember last year they were set aside or put on ice due to what was perceived as government interference in the affairs of football in that country. And following that lifting of the ban yesterday, there was a press conference held in Zimbabwe which was addressed by, among others, the Zimbabwean government in the form of Sports Minister and former Olympic swimmer Kirsty Coventry. Let's take a listen.
The specific action that the government took in removing the ZIFA board was what led to the suspension. So you'll see that most of the conditions for the lifting of the sanctions, of the conditions, was linked to repealing certain decisions. So it's unfortunate that it happened. If you ask the government, they feel that they were justified in doing it. What we would like to do is to avoid that in the future and to work closely together so that we talk not just in times of crisis, but also in planning for positive football development programs.
And I hope that we all take this opportunity with both hands and we run full speed ahead and ensuring that Zimbabwe becomes a global phenomenon in the world of soccer. Thank you.
All right, that's Kirsty Coventry there, the sports minister in Zimbabwe and a former Olympic swimmer for that country. And I'm joined at the moment by a football analyst, an African football analyst, Elasto Kapowezha, who also happens to be a former Zimbabwe international. Elasto, thank you so much for your time this morning. Let's start here. We heard that in that clip that one of the reasons, or the main reason that Zimbabwe was banned was because of what was perceived to be government interference. Just explain to us what that means.
Good morning, Benji. Good morning to the viewers as well. Yeah, Benji, when it comes to the so-called third-party interference, basically it means that FIFA do not take any kindly to so-called government interference, whereby you find that the hand of the government is involved in the affairs of a football association. It has to be independent, although it's something that is always difficult to try to determine what actually constitutes this interference, because you find that government is the one that at times bankrolls or gives money to associations. So sometimes they want accountability. And if they feel that things are not being done the way they want things to be done, you find that now they also come up with measures. In the case of Zimbabwe, ZIFA versus the Sports Recreation Commission, it was a situation where the SRC was not happy with the way ZIFA was running things. So all sorts of allegations were leveled against the ZIFA executive board, leading to its dissolution and suspension of key ZIFA executive board members.
And it's such a difficult one, Elasto. Like you say, if you're the one footing the bill, forget if it's government. If you're footing the bill for anybody, you expect some sort of accountability from them. If someone has a tender for something, they have to report to someone in as far as what amount of money has gone to. And immediately that can't happen. Then there's an issue. And in this case, government took exception to one Felton Kamambo and his executive, Felton Kamambo being the now former president of the Zimbabwe Football Association, and what they called misappropriation of funds. So how do you then deal with such an issue if government cannot speak on issues that involve their money, to be frank, and also the rule of that country? Shouldn't a football association be subject to the law of the land?
Very debatable. I think the football fraternity is trying to find a solution, a balance between what the government, how far can the government go when they bankroll a football association who cannot stand in isolation. They need government support. But as you rightly put it, that there should be accountability benching that comes from the money that is being used by the government. But FIFA, at the same extent as well, does not also want government to go that far in terms of actually changing the regime or changing the executive, the elected executive of ZIFA or an association. So that is where the conflict normally arises. And exactly this is what transpired when you talk about Zimbabwe, where for the last 1 year and 4 months, they've been isolated, where they are not able to play international football. And FIFA normally has that power to try to force government to stay away from the matters pertaining to the association.
And this lifting of the ban by FIFA was necessitated, of course, by the lifting of the suspension by the government itself on the ZIFA board, interestingly. Has the matter then been sorted out, which forced the government to suspend the ZIFA board because it was an issue that had to do with money? Has that been sorted out, which then allowed the government to lift the suspension of the ZIFA board?
I think it was just a combination of factors. There are some outstanding matters. There are some that just took care of themselves. If you look at the ZIFA board led by Felton Kamambo, of course, it has run its course either way because they were supposed to be out of office, running their 4-year cycle. That is last year in December 2022. So that on its own made it easier as well to put now what is called the normalization committee. Some of the allegations, of course, they are still running its course in the court of laws. So there are some outstanding ones, there are some that took care of themselves. It seems as if from both parties or all the stakeholders involved, it was a moment where a solution had to be found. And I think it was the right time and an opportune moment to make sure that, yes, now the country gets back to playing international football through, of course, the normalization committee that will run its course until the 30th of June 2024. So basically a year where there's this interim kind of body that is going to run football affairs.
Are we likely to see, because Felton Kamambo's term as president of ZIFA ended in December, are we likely to see a situation where he comes out and says, look, my term was interrupted and I'd like to finish my term as president of ZIFA? Is that a likely situation?
You might think like that, Penchi, because if you look at the last 2 years or so, I think there was just a time where he was not active. He was suspended. Some of his board members were suspended. So you can't say that he really completed his term. But again, if you look at the bigger picture and what the masses want, what it means for the country to be back again playing international football, I don't think he's got so much of a strong leg to stand on, to come up with this notion that he never really was in charge for the 4 years. So it looks like there is kind of unanimous consensus amongst everyone that this is the time where a new ZIFA board in 12 months' time should be able now to take football in Zimbabwe to where it rightfully belongs.
And of course, the ban for Zimbabwe, unfortunate for that country and you, Elasto, as a former Zimbabwe international, but it was actually good news for South Africa, who actually benefited from Zimbabwe being banned and reduced their AFCON qualification group to just 3 teams. Morocco, Liberia, and South Africa had one of the easiest routes to the Nations Cup, so to speak. But the World Cup qualifiers, this lifting of the ban is just in time for the draw for the World Cup qualifiers for the 2026 global showpiece. But Elasto, let me shift gears and take you to another hat that you happen to wear and hit 2 birds with 1 stone. I say that, and excuse the pun, because I'm talking about Swallows. We have grown to know it as Swallows FC, but it's gone back to now being Moroka Swallows as of yesterday. And you are, or happen to be, the general manager also of Moroka Swallows. How did this come about? Talk to us about the good news that the Swallows fans can now celebrate.
Yeah, look, Benji, I think it's a case of identity. It's a case of you being now fully recognized as who you are. And we were kind of a half-named club without, having the Moroka behind our name. And of course, the club has been working hard for the last 4 years to make sure that, yes, we now trade as our favored Moroka Swallows. So we are very excited, very elated that now we get to be called Moroka Swallows. We are full, and sometimes you couldn't even falter anybody who kept on calling us Moroka Swallows, although we were, trading under the Swallows FC name. So it means a lot for the club. Our identity is now complete, is full. Our fans, there are some that could not even identify with Swallows FC, who really would have wanted that we kept the name. So the club has been working behind the scenes, and we are just happy that now the PSO Executive Committee has approved this name change. I can't even call it a name change. It is just the restoration and us getting back to who we are as Moroka Swallows Football Club. And I'm sure you've been following the exciting things that are happening in the club. So yeah, it just makes us to be who we are supposed to be as a club. And yeah, playing as Swallows FC, we all felt that there's something missing. But I think that puzzle now is complete. And I'm sure that will be a source of inspiration, motivation for the club, going forward to make sure that, yes, we do well, we're in the top 8, and also looking forward to improve on our position last season.
Quickly, Elasto, I understood the issue to be about FIFA and some amounts of money that were owed to certain players of the old Moroka Swallows. Has that been sorted with FIFA and the outstanding finances been sorted?
Benji, for us to be allowed or permitted to use Moroka Swallows, it means that all those matters are behind us. We would not have been allowed for us to revert back to Moroka Swallows. Like I said, that it was a process. We had been working behind the scenes. There are certain issues that, yes, had to be resolved. And the club has done that. They've done very well to make sure that all those off-the-field matters, now they're a thing of the past. Because as you know that when Moroka Swallows bought Maccabi FC, yes, there were some outstanding issues. Just like any business, a transaction that happens, especially when it changes hands. So those things had to be in place. And credit to the management to make sure that, yes, at the beginning we started as Swallows FC, knowing that there are issues that needed to be sorted out. And we're happy to announce that today we are back to who we are as Moroka Swallows Football Club.
Elasto Kapowezha, thank you so much for your expertise. It was a bit of a tongue twister. Swallows, Moroka Swallows, Maswai Swai, up the beds. It's back to Moroka Swallows. Thank you so much.